Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get rolling to be good for our time. Welcome. My name's Todd Stocker, and this course or this class is Best Leadership Through Coaching. It's not about athletics, so if anybody wants to leave now, we'll look down and you can walk out. Thanks, David. Yeah. And because he did that, that's my brother-in-law, David Hook, and it's his 23rd birthday today. So, ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you. All right, let's close in prayer. Hey. Welcome. So this is Best Leadership Through Coaching, and what I mean by coaching we'll get into a lot. But before we begin, does somebody want to open us with prayer? I don't have to have the crown of prayer over me. Somebody want to just start us?
I will.
Thank you very much.
Dear Lord, we thank you for all the people gathered in this room today. We thank you for all the people that are not gathered in this room and the people that you've given us to minister to. Put an extra measure upon our speaker today. Todd, give him an extra measure of your Holy Spirit. Please bless the rest of our day and the interactions we have, knowing that we are called to do what we do for you.
Amen. Thank you very much. So very quickly, hopefully you're having a great time here at Best Practices. Anybody, is this your first time at Best Practices? Oh, lots of you. Super cool. That kind of surprised me last night when Pastor Jeff did that. I've only missed one of these. This is actually my home church. I'm from Minnesota. And yes, we brought the cold weather for you, so thank you. You're welcome. It might be your fault, too. Home congregation, I went through grade school here, so to see how God has blessed this ministry over the years has just been pretty amazing. About this session, so this is a 4-hour workshop that I normally do on basics of coaching, especially in a workplace and leadership situation. So I'm going to try and squish it down to about an hour and a half. And over that time, what we're going to be doing is we're going to look at what actually coaching is, because most people, when you hear the word coaching in terms of leadership development and pouring into people, we don't have it quite right. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So what is coaching? I'm going to give you 2 models that I use every single time that I coach. These 2 models of coaching are rolling around in my little brain up here as I'm speaking and having a conversation with someone. And then, if we have time, I'm actually going to do a hot seat. If somebody in here has an issue that they need some coaching on, the only caveat is it can't be about another person in the room. So if you're a DCE and your pastor's here, that's counseling. That's not no, I'm just kidding. But so just kind of be thinking about that, and it'll be kind of stale and weird because we'll kind of work it through with the group. But hopefully we'll get some time to do a little hot seat. And you can see in practice some of the things that we talk about in this next section. So again, go ahead and take notes. If you are signing in there's some sheets going around for sign-ins. I'll email you everything at the very end of this session. I'm going to give you a secret page that you can go to that's specifically for you. For best practices, and it'll have all the slide decks, so don't worry about getting every single note down. It'll have all the forms that I'm going to show you that I use constantly, bunch of links, everything that I reference will be there, and some extra bonuses as well, okay? And $5 for Caribou coffee or something. Oh, you don't know what Caribou is. Starbucks coffee. Yeah, okay. I'm kidding about that. Anyway, so just for me to get to know who we are, raise your hand if you are a pastor, ordained pastor. Okay. Raise your hand if you are a children's youth minister, someone in that area. Okay. How about, is there anybody who is a certified coach? Yeah, Tracy, yeah. Kind of? Okay, good, yeah. Usually I have 1 or 2 that are actually coaches that are, and praise God you're here because you want to keep learning, right? That's what we do. So quick question, why are you here? Of all the 37,000 sessions that you could be at right now, why are you here?
So I can be a better leader.
So you can love that answer. So you can be a better leader. Why else? Yeah.
I try to do too much on my own. I want to be able to coach other people to do what
Yeah. Awesome. I'm not waving in the spirit. There's a fly up here, just to let you know. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing too much. How many of you are doing too much, you feel, and you want to be able to, wow, equip others to do the work of the ministry? Crazy. Okay, good. Yeah. What do you hope to get at the end of this session? What do you want to walk away with? Tools on how to do it. Okay. You see what I'm doing already? That's coaching. Right? That's coaching. I could get up here and I could give you a great presentation, but who cares if you're not walking away with what God would have for you and what you want, right? Okay, so as we're talking about what is coaching, 50% of my slides is definition. So the tools stuff is a little later. And because the defining on what coaching actually is, when you hear that word as a starting point, is so important. We're going to spend a whole bunch of time, or at least a lot of the slide time, on the definition of coaching. And then again, I'm going to give you those couple of models and different things. So quick question, what is coaching? Basically my story. I'm a pastor up in Minnesota. I'm filling a vacancy right now by a church that's right next to Paisley Park. Anybody know what that is? Prince, his whole compound? Yeah, you do, of course. Yeah. So doing that, I'm involved in many different ministries. I have my training through PCCI, which is Professional Christian Coaching Institute. And then also I've done training with International Coaching Federation. Anybody have heard of those at all? Those are some of the mainstays organizations. And then I also do work with PLI, Pastoral Leadership Institute, and then also Church Doctor Ministries. Tracy Swank, raise your hand, president of Church Doctor Ministries. We do coaching together and presenting, and both PLI and CDM, Church Doctor Ministries, have booths down there, so you can touch base there. So that's kind of who I am. But how I stumbled upon coaching was really bizarre. It had nothing to do with ministry. My background is a pastor, behavioral science, psychology, sociology from Concordia University, Irvine. Tells you how old I am right there. But for me, stepping into ministry, one of the biggest fears I had was not preaching Bible studies. It was meeting one-on-one with somebody when they said, hey, pastor, can we meet? I have a question about X. My default mode was I have to know everything about what this person's going to ask me. Especially, here's a young guy out of the seminary coming in, and here's a marriage question coming in over my desk, or we get counseling at the SEM, but it petrified me. And I'd worry about meeting with someone because I had no idea what I was going to say. I had to know everything. Coaching has relieved me of all of that and will relieve you of that stress of having to meet with, or having to have even anything prepared when you meet with somebody. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. But it really started with, it had nothing to do with ministry. It started with parenting. So I have 3 wonderful kids. My oldest she actually passed away. She's in heaven 12 years ago. So she's in heaven right now. My youngest is in Minnesota. She's a director of marketing and does some other things. She's awesome. And then my middle son is this hairy guy right here. He's part of a band named Hippocampus. Anybody hear of this band? You guys are old. You have? Okay, good. So Hippocampus, I'm stepping out of, this is Proud Dad moment. This is the Armory in St. Paul, 8,000 people. They sold it out there. This is my son right here, the long hair, gets it from my wife. They just sold out Red Rocks in Denver. Thank you. Yeah. It's 10,000. So we're super excited. He's doing really well, and I keep saying, Nathan, you got to do well. You're my retirement plan. So, and he's sick of me saying that. But anyway, so one day he came to my wife and he said, "Hey, Mom, whenever Dad talks to us, he teaches." And I thought, and he was 22 at that time, and I thought to myself, awesome. I'm a dad. I'm supposed to be teaching. I'm supposed to be, I'm a teacher. That's one of my spiritual gifts. But then I thought, that's not how I want a relationship with my son. I don't want to just be the teacher standing in front of someone, pouring into that person, and then just go on your way. I wanted that relationship. So it caused me to do a mental shift and go, wait a second, how can I parent better, stepping away from the teacher mode? And so I kind of went through this whole redo of how I parent, and actually I came up with a talk called Stages of Parenting. So this is just kind of an aside. As we see it, there's 5 stages of parenting, if you will, and we use the educational model. So basically, the caregiver stage is birth to early schooling age, okay? The classic parent is early schooling to 6th grade. Now, again, when I say parenting, you're always a parent when you're a parent, right? No matter what age. So classic parent is kind of the early schooling to 6th grade. The chaos compass stage is 6th to 8th grade, right? You are to be you're pointing your child North Star and let them bounce all over you as they figure out and navigate life. How many of you who have kids have heard your parents say, or your kids say, I hate you to you? Isn't that fun? Yeah. This is just chaos for them. 4th stage, and again, this is a longer presentation, but 4th stage is what I call the consultant stage. And you'll understand that word when we get into it. But that's basically 9th, 10th grade as they're kind of maturing a little bit, hopefully. But then 11th grade, 12th grade, and beyond, the role of coaching really, really comes in. Okay? Because it's taking it's these gifts of asking good questions that are not leading, that help them process their world and their situation on their own. Anybody read the book, Parenting with Love and Logic? Remember that book? Yeah, that was a foundational book for my wife and I. Basically saying, here's a red outfit, here's a green outfit. Which outfit do you want to wear today? My kids would always say, I want the blue one, you know. But it's giving them the ability to choose, okay? So after this whole thing with my son Nathan, I was at my church that I was serving at the time, and there's a box in the office that anybody could throw any book in there that they want, and we would donate it to Uganda, a ministry down there. And I was walking past that box, and I saw a book called Transformational Coaching by Agni and Raul. Transformational Coaching. And again, this will all be on what I send you, the resources. And the whole idea is that coaching is a transformational process, and they put it in the sense of transformational, meaning using coaching to further the gospel. It's a great, great read. So that was sort of the bridging within a week between this conversation with my wife and my son to me going, what is this thing called coaching? And so here are the things that I've learned over the years and through my prep, and many of you probably are already natural coaches, you just don't know it. So hopefully this will kind of bring some of that out. Coaching is rooted in learning. Okay? Coaching is rooted in learning. I'm going to start from the bottom. And if you're a teacher, you've probably seen this before. This is a average student retention rate. If you are teaching others, 90% of you as a teacher, you're going to learn and know. Okay? So that's an active teaching aspect. Coaching is really the person teaching themselves because they come up with their own next best course of action. So if you came up with a plan of change for your life, how likely is it that you're going to move forward with it? Pretty likely, right? If somebody comes in who's trying or who is over smoking, if I could say that, and they're having serious health issues, and the doctor says you need to quit smoking, the percentage is 11% of people actually stop smoking. When do people stop smoking? It's when it becomes personal. It's when the choice is made. Same thing with losing weight. People can tell you to lose weight all you want, but until you decide and make that choice, until it's personal to you, nothing's really going to happen, or very little, okay? We can just kind of go up from there. 75% of what they learn is when they practice what they learn. 50% of what they learn is when they're engaged in group discussion. In terms of retention, 30% of what they learn is when they see a demonstration. 20% of what they learn is audio-visual. 10% of what they learn is when they learn just from reading. 5% retention rate is the retention rate when learned from a lecture. Pastors, what is preaching? This is real. This is scary. And this has implications on how we communicate, not just preaching, but how we communicate with our staff and equip them in what we're doing. Basically, that means that every 10 things you say, people learn 0.5% of that. Anybody have kids? Yeah, it's probably even less with them, right? Study after study shows that these are true. Less than 0.5%, so 5%. So simply put, teaching does not guarantee learning or life change. Now, I'm not bashing teachers at all or teaching itself, because that's awesome. That's what I do. That's what I love. But teaching does not guarantee learning or life change. You have to think differently in your approach to teaching and leading if you want to see positive life change in people's lives, transformational change in a person's life. Socrates once said, remember Socrates? Movie reference, anybody? Thank you, Bill and Ted's. I'm not the only old one. Socrates said, I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. Isn't that good teaching? That's what we do, right? And this is all neuroscience. You know that learning is simply making a connection between two things. When you're teaching young kids the alphabet, when you show them an S and you go S, and so it's the connection between the S sound and the visual of that. That's learning. It's those connections that are made. It connects you. Coaching connects with what God has already, and this is key. Coaching connects a person with what God has already put inside of them. You may not, or your staff person may not know that they already have the answer to the struggle with which they're struggling. Coaching gets to the point of that. I love Proverbs 20, verse 5, which is kind of the foundational coaching biblical verse. Though good advice lies deep within a person's heart, the wise will draw it out. The wise will draw it out. And here's the best part about learning these basic skills of coaching. You do not have to be the expert on any of that. Okay? You don't have to be the expert. The coach approach helps people realize a change is needed because of pain or pleasure. Did you know that pain and pleasure were the only two ways people change? It's either I'm moving towards something that's really great. Oh my goodness, this looks so awesome. I'm going to move. I see Kelly, my wife. Wow, I'm just in love with her. I forget all others, and she's the one moving toward that. Toward David. Yeah, don't say anything. I'm moving toward her because that's pleasurable to be in a relationship with her. Or pain. This is a painful situation. I'm taking a new call. I'm feeling called somewhere else. I'm quitting this job. I'm doing whatever it is. Pain and pleasure. Coach approach helps people realize change is needed because of pain or pleasure, and then helps them set up and implement and explore a plan for change. Right? Again, you don't have to be the expert. That's why for me, the people that I've coached over the years range from ministry people, real estate folks, lawyers, doctors, just this wide variety of people. And I don't have to be reading, in psychology, I don't have to be reading the DSM-8 or whatever it is now and know all of that. Yeah, you know that. Yeah. Is it 5? Thank you. 5. Oh, yeah, where am I? But I don't have to know everything about that because I'm not coaching the problem. I'm coaching the person. And this is why in the understanding and the implementation of coaching in your leadership toolbox is so important. What would it look like for you if your director of children's ministry came to you wondering how to get more volunteers, and through coaching, they came up with 2 solutions and implemented them that week that yielded 10 more volunteers more than last month. What would that look like? And none of the solutions was a desperate plea from the pulpit. What would it look like if your right out of school 3rd grade teacher is struggling with the almost retired 5th grade teacher, and through coaching they learn not just to work together, but to support each other and have a positive impact on the students and the families? What would it look like if your office manager was struggling with how to handle an employee's lack of production, and through coaching they came up with a strategy to coach that employee? That's what coaching does, as we understand it. Okay, so what is coaching? Let's keep going with. I told you it's a lot of definition because it's important to know really what we're getting at before we get into the tools. What is coaching? If I teach, I inform. If I ask, I transform. If I teach, I inform. If I ask, I transform. Both are happening in the educational model. And I'm not dissing on information, but asking is so key. Coaching is a facilitated monologue in which the person being coached discovers solutions and courses of action through insight. Simply put, if they come up with it, they're more likely to move forward with it. Everybody kind of connecting with this a little bit more? Yeah, everybody agreeing with this? Okay. So here's a visual of all that. I'm kind of a visual person. So this is kind of, now we're getting into a little bit of the difference between mentoring, counseling, consulting, and what's considered pure coaching as we're talking. So here's a problem somebody has. We all have problems. Here's a problem somebody has, okay? The counselor, we're yellow, by the way. You and I are yellow. The counselor model says that the person with the problem, and this is, if you're a counselor, this is big general statements. The person with the problem is looking at the counselor. You're looking at the counselor is looking at the person, and the counselor is looking at the problem and basically coming up solutions for the person. Counseling really takes somebody, if 0 is kind of norm, counseling helps take people from a negative situation in their life up to a normalcy idea, generally. Okay? And again, man, there's a big, there's a lot of holes in that, but generally that really is what that is. The consultant mentor looks like this. So the consultant mentor is here looking again at the problem. You bring a consultant in. What are the problems? With Church Doctor Ministries, we come in, and no matter what's happening in the church, we do full diagnostic from head to foot of a church or a specific ministry. We do days of talking to people and figuring out where God is moving, working, and blessing is kind of our phrase. And then we come back with recommendations, and then they move on the recommendations, and we coach them along that. So as a consultant or mentor, you're looking at the problem, and then the person is looking at you, but also then looking at the problem. You're not like this. You're kind of bridging that gap. This, you're more of a partnership, but you're still responsible for coming up with recommendations or help for that person. Here's what coaching looks like. You see the difference? The coach rarely looks at the problem. We need 500, well, here's a story. Here's a quick example. Laura, my worship director at Trinity in Hudson, Wisconsin, at the time, we needed a new sound system at our one campus because it was horrible. It was like an AM radio that we were working with. And so she came to me with this problem, and I'm a music guy. I love tech. I could have just gone on Amazon or Sweetwater or wherever and just gone crazy with all of that. She's the worship director. I just said, well, what do we need? What do you see as not what's the problem? What do you see is the problem? See that language? I am looking at Laura I said, come back to me with 3 or 4 solutions, and then we can go to the board, and I could sell my first child for the money, and that pretty much didn't happen, but it was close. So the coach is looking at you as a coach are looking at your staff member who's looking at the problem. If you're a leader right now, you should have a little angst. And we'll talk about that later on, why you should be having angst at this stage of the game. Okay? Okay. This is from a book called The Coaching Mindset. Clients can sometimes be in a real pickle. As the coach, you need to think, oh, this is a tough spot. I can't wait to see how she gets through this. Isn't that different from pastor, solve this, church ministry director, solve this? And that's good thinking to continue. You do not want to think, oh, this is a tough spot. How can I help her get through this? That's bad thinking. Or even worse, is to transfer the challenge to you so that it becomes your challenge. How many of you would like to just dump half the conversations back onto the person and run with that? And the problem is, I get it. I've been in ministry 25 years. Somebody comes into your office and they're trying to do whatever and figure out whatever, and you know the answer. Just go do this. But it's enabling, in a sense, not letting them work through the problem. When we get into the models, I'll show you where that plays into good coaching strategies. Okay, just a couple more. Again, definition. What is a coach? That pumpkin was called a what? A coach, right? What is a bus? The bus company, Coach USA. Coaching simply takes a person from one spot to another. You're not the driver, they are. But it moves people. That's basically what that is. Okay. So definitions and differences between counseling and coaching. Again, I'm going to go through a lot of this quick. I'll send all this to you, or you can get them off of the website that I'll show you in a bit. Counseling, the goal is a higher level of stability. Remember I said from a negative situation up to, quote, normal. How many of you in here are normal? Good, nobody's raising their hands. Yeah. Coaching is... The goal is higher level of success from 0+. I want to take one more step in my health. I want to take one more step in training my volunteers. I want to take one more step in reaching the community. So it's coming from a 0 or a normalcy, taking your life, leadership, whatever it is, person to the next level. Counseling assumes dependency. Coaching assumes overall health. Nobody's overall healthy. Nobody's overall dependent. But you know what I'm saying. Counseling deals with emotional difficulties a lot of times, most of the time. Coaching deals with the desire to move forward to solve a problem. Does that make sense? Coaching or counseling focuses on the past and asks the word why. Why is kind of a no-no statement in coaching. Why did you fire your best volunteer? That wouldn't come out of a coach's mouth. Well, a better statement on that was, what was the outcome of you firing your best volunteer? See how that puts a thinking mindset back onto the person? Maybe next time I will consult you, pastor or church leader, about that. Focuses on the present and future, asks what and how, and kind of processes moving forward. Just a quick story. I was in a coaching session with a buddy his name's Isaac, and he was actually struggling in marriage. Now, this wasn't a counseling thing. This was, boy, our marriage is stale. It's just, what's next in our marriage? And he came up with this idea. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but basically, as we coached, he discovered that he wasn't listening to his wife when he came home from work. That never happens to any of us guys at all, but for him it did, and it was causing friction in his marriage. And I said, well, so what are some strategies you can come up with that you think would be helpful for her to know that you love her and are impacted? He came up with this strategy that I've actually mentored and coached other people on, called the second question strategy. that as she is talking, and this isn't a sexist thing, this is just Isaac. As she is talking and telling about, how's your day, how was your day, as she's talking about her day, he decided he's going to hang on something she says and ask a second question about it. Okay, so I don't remember the example, but it was something like, I'll just make something up. I don't think it was what she said, but she came home and said, "Yeah, it was really busy at work, and by the time I got home, all I could do was hamburger helper, and why don't we just go out for pizza?" And instead of him, like guys, we just go, "Okay, let's go to pizza," right? Well, she just said this massive story beforehand. So what he started doing was going, "Wait, tell me, what was it about work that made it stressful?" Okay, this isn't sexist either, but if you're married wives, what would that do for you to know that your husband says, wait, I'm interested, or vice versa, tell me more about that. Oh my goodness, their relationship. I will read what he wrote back after he came up with this. He wrote back, let's see. "Thank you for coaching and following up. Life has been much better. All it took was being present. I did ask a favor of her to make that happen, not to ask me about work when I came home." That was one of his issues. And it allowed me to stay in home mode. I still have work ideas that pop up, but now I'm better able to box them up temporarily and get to them later. We've had several dates away from our children since then, and the second question concept that I came up with is magic. All of these have allowed her to open up in ways I haven't seen in a long time and have trickled into the bedroom as well. So there you go. Coaching saves your sex life too. Okay, anyway, that's just a great story. Okay, one more difference. Mentoring and counseling or discipling, right, is different from coaching in that mentoring, counseling, discipling often offers solutions to the person. Coaching draws out solutions. Think of that Bible verse: a wise person draws it out. Mentoring, discipling, consulting external strategies and models. We all know the policy-based governance models. We all know the different models of worship planning and all that. Coaching are internal strategies within the person or the department or organization. Coaching is mentoring is telling and advising. Coaching is asking and supporting. Mentoring is more directive, and coaching is more of a partnership. But again, think of that visual. As a coach, you're not looking necessarily at the problem. Your main focus is the person who's dealing with that problem. That's how coaching comes to be. Any questions at this point on the differences themselves? Would you use counseling, mentoring, and coaching all in the same conversation? Kind of a trick question. The answer is absolutely yes. Depends on the issue that's drawn out. The issue that's drawn out could be, I'm struggling with pastor, my youth director, I'm struggling with alcohol. He isn't, by the way. Don't go back and say that. And so that's a whole different thing. But in my coaching and when I'm coaching leaders, I'm constantly flipping these hats. We have people that we coach at Church Doctor Ministries and PLI that this is constantly, you know who I'm thinking about, Tracy. I'm constantly flipping hats between the staying in coaching and modeling. What I would say is every conversation that you approach with your staff or team or kids, start with the coach approach first. And then if you need to morph and model into these, use coaching as kind of the foundational starting point because you want them to be able to make their own decisions, the Holy Spirit in them bringing out these potential ideas. Yeah.
Are there times where people, I hate to say this word, it feels like it's really wrong, but that people have some wounds or something that they feel or seem uncoachable because they need more of that counseling? Or can they work alongside Or do you find that sometimes before they can be coached, they have to get to zero?
Whew, excellent question. So the question was, if somebody, I'll flip it a little bit, but if somebody has like a real deep issue that needs a counseling situation, does that have to be fixed before you coach them? Is that kind of helpful?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's the best answer. Sometimes it just really depends, because we all need counseling, right? On different issues, we really do, And if you're afraid of getting a Christian counselor, Christian counseling to me is a sign of strength, not weakness. When your car has a very bad sound underneath your front left tire, where are you going to go? Oh, I'm okay. I'm going to keep driving across the country. You're going to take it to a mechanic. Take your freaking life to the mechanic, okay? If you need it, find it, get the help. So excellent question. Thank you for that. Jesus' number one model was actually coaching. I don't know if you knew that. Jesus' number one, it wasn't preaching, it wasn't workshops, it wasn't flannel graphs or 12-point PowerPoint. It was questions. 307 times or so, he asked questions rather than teaching. So 307 times questions. He was asked 183 questions. Do you know how many of those 183 questions he actually answered? 3. Isn't that interesting? And you're going to ask me, what 3 was it? And I have no idea. That's what my AI told me. So anyway, if you don't know what that is, get on, man. Do some research. Anyway, so if you want to be a successful leader, you have to be better at asking questions. Okay, 3 words, and then we'll get into some of the models that I use. 3 key words in coaching. First one is this: questions. Obviously, we've been talking about that. First, questions is the key word. Again, that was Jesus' model. That's how he taught. What do you think? If a man, has everything, he goes and sells, what do you think? He was constantly putting it back into the person's lap. As he taught, he gave insights, he counseled, but asking people questions was when he was coaching. Okay, so questions is a key word with coaching. The other word is curiosity. Right? This will help keep you in the mindset of being a coach, right? So the coach would say, you said you were struggling with your ministry leader. I'm curious, what's the struggle? If you use that word as you're in conversation with your staff, as you're listening, you say, I'm curious, what do you think would be a next step, a next best step, not necessarily the best step, but your next best step to reaching the apartment complex that's right across the street from your church? What would be the next step? How many times have you heard someone say something like, I'm just super busy, it's driving me crazy? What's your typical response? Me too, right? That's how we respond often to that. What if you say, well, I'm curious, what's your plan of making it better? That's a pretty good one. And you coach the person, not the problem. I can't get along with George. He's lazy. He's hard to work with. Coach's response? Well, how are you reacting to him now? What would be a better reaction? I'm curious about that. Walt Disney has a great quote about this. He says, around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps us down new paths, keeps leading us down new paths. Curiosity killed the cat. No, it did not. It did not kill the cat. So curiosity. The other one is silence. Silence is the brain trying to create new pathways. If you ask somebody a question, don't ask another question. Don't give them options. Don't say, I'm trying to keep it all in the church ministry world. Don't say, have you considered a hymn for this Sunday? Or do you think you should do a praise song? What have you done? What have you just done? You gave them options, and then this is all brain science now. They can't think outside those 2 options, or it's very difficult. What do you think? What style do you think the music should be after the sermon? Would be a better option, right? Or would be better. Okay? So, and then you stop and you listen. If you ask somebody a person and they look up and to the left specifically, it's brain science. They're actually accessing new parts of their brain to come up with an answer to what you just asked them. Okay? So two things that I look for and consider, okay, I'm on the right track when I'm actually doing coaching with somebody. The first one is that, where they're looking up and which means they're thinking. And then if in a meeting with my staff, I hear, wow, that's a good question. When I get those two things, I'm like, whoo, time for whiskey, right? Just let's celebrate. Yeah, because that's the goal of coaching. It's having God work His wisdom in them, right? When the person looks down and is diverting, just as an aside, like your kids always do, they're either lying or they're embarrassed about the situation. When you look down and are away, they're embarrassed about the situation, or there could be other things as well. Isn't this why James says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, quick to listen? One coach that I had said, the sign of a good coach is a scarred tongue. You know? You ask the question, and then you bite hard, right? Right? How long is 3 seconds?
Forever.
Exactly, isn't it? It's forever. If I were to ask you a question and I were to sit and try and wait for you to answer, 3 seconds to me feels like 30 minutes. 3 seconds to you feels like 0.13. Because you're active, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, are you gonna... It's so hard to just ask a question, one question, and then respond. How long was that? That was less than 3 seconds. How long did it feel? For me, forever. It felt like forever. But so, okay. All right, let me dive into the models because these are the models again that, yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any advice for the person who's like being coached to help alleviate that coach from feeling like, oh, this is taking forever?
A good coach would just sit with you and not say anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? Is there a situation where, what's the situation?
Well, it's just, I mean, I went through a coaching process, so personally, because I've been in leadership, but also been in the position of being coached, like, I have, like, empathy, I guess, for the person I work with, or someone who's working with me, so I try to, like, give them encouragement if they sound like they could need it, too. I don't know.
So you're coaching the coach, is what you're talking. Yeah.
Well, because like one common thing I hear about like ministry work is like volunteers will feel a lot of burnout. So it's like, which I experienced it myself too. So it's like, I kind of like the idea of just like growing together, I guess.
Yeah.
Whether I'm being one coached or not.
Yeah, no, those are all good questions, and actually some of what we're going to talk about now in terms of the model could answer some of that. If it doesn't, bring that back up after we're done with talking through some of these models, okay? Or talk to me afterwards because I think I know what you're saying. Okay, so these are the two models. The GROW model, if you're in coaching or if you've looked this up, GROW is an acronym, acrostic. There's a difference. I don't remember. Acronym. Thank you. It's an acronym for something. I added the I in front of this because just based on experience when I'm using this. This is the foundational idea and framework through which I do the coaching. Okay, this is art. It's not science. You're not going to go, okay, I'm going to say this, and whatever that person says, I don't care. I'm going to say this, and then that's not how it works. But this is the framework that you come into a situation with. The Stainer questions, Michael Bungay Stainer wrote a great book that I'll show you in a second. Those are specific questions that I intersperse within this framework of what I call iGrow. Okay, so iGrow stands for this: issue, goal, reality, options, and will. Okay, let's close in prayer. So issue, goal, reality, options, and will. And I'm going to go through this. PLI has a model it's if you're involved in. There was somebody in here that signed up as part of PLI. Has anybody gone through is in PLI leadership?
Went through 1,000 young leaders.
Oh yeah, okay. So there's a model. It's a Kairos circle model of coaching, which follows this pretty closely. They just use different words, and it's more spiritual. This is more of a workplace. You can look this up on the internet. So let me get into this. The GROW model and the 7 questions that I use interspersed. The GROW model was actually developed by a guy named Sir John Whitmore. I don't know what the Sir was for. But the purpose that he said was to help people define the gap between what they want and the obstacles that they see and find solutions and create accountability to get it done. Wouldn't that be great if every ministry leader or volunteer leader or child that you have comes up with solutions to their problems and they actually do it and get it done? That's the idea. Sir John, this model is relatively new, 1987 I think it is, when he actually put this down on paper, started teaching it. Okay, so the first one, as I said, issue. So basically the question is, what's on your mind? How many of you have had a staff person or have a staff person that comes into your office and even not just walks in, but even has a scheduled appointment, and they just start talking about anything, and nothing makes sense, right? If you ask this question, they'll go right to what their problem is. What's on your mind? This is brain science stuff. What's on your mind? There's a guy he's a lovely gentleman that is at this church that I'm serving. And his wife talks constantly. She's a lovely person too. Why? Just lovely. And on Sunday morning, she's talking and he's just sitting there. So guess when his time to talk is? When he comes into the office during the week and I'm sitting there trying to get stuff done. He starts talking about replacing his daughter's water filter, and I'm literally sitting there on my computer. Sometimes I pick up the phone. Hold on, just yeah. No, I don't do that. That's lying. But I wonder if that would work. So I started using this. I'm like, Dean, what's on your mind? And he usually says, oh, nothing. I just wanted to talk. And then that opens me up to saying, yeah, I'll sit and talk. Or, hey, why don't you come back in about a half hour? I got some things I'm finishing up. And he gets it. So what's on your mind focuses the person right into what the conversation will be. Then they might start describing a little bit as to what's on their mind. They'll probably start into the issue itself. What's the problem? At some point, the G stands for grow. At some point, I kind of transition into what is the goal or the outcome of our time together. This is more so 9 o'clock a.m. I have a meeting scheduled with you. You're coming in. And there's two parts to this. Our time now, like right now, by the end of this, I actually did it at the beginning of our session. At the end of this time, what do you want to walk away with? And everybody kind of said tools. These are the tools, right? So, Dean, at the end of our time, what do you want to walk away with? What would make this feel like a win for you? So in my marriage, honey, do you want me to fix this? Or do you want me just to... Oh, you're married too. Yeah. Right? I do this sometimes with Kelly, but mostly I'll just love my wife's voice. So I actually don't use that one a lot. Do you want me to just listen to you or solve something? Because she's a problem solver. So I let her talk a while and she'll solve it. And I could be listening to the game in the other ear, with an earbud. But no, I don't. But so that's the first goal of a time together is our time now. But then the other one is, what's their dream? What is the goal or the end result of solving this problem that this person is coming to me to talk with? What's the outcome? One of my favorites, if you were to wake up tomorrow and this situation was where you would like it to be, what would that look like? If you were to wake up tomorrow, if I were to meet you 3 years from now walking down the road and everything was perfect, what would that look like? Some of the questions around this, Again, I'm giving you all this. Don't scramble to write it down unless you want to. Some of the questions that I use: what's the aim of our discussion? What would need to happen for you to walk away feeling that this time was well spent? What does success look like in this situation? Pretty basic stuff. And again, I'll bet that a lot of you do this naturally in conversations. So that's the I and the G. The R is, what is the reality today? What is the reality today? You already have a flavor from which one, the issue or the goal? What's your reality today? Is it the issue that they talked about or the goal? The issue, right? Because this is the issue. Okay, now I'm really struggling with Dean, who talks all the time in normal conversation. What are the obstacles to reaching your goal? Assess the current situation in terms of the actions that are taken so far, right? Clarify what's been going on. What have you tried already? In fact, those are some of the questions. What's happening now in this situation? What, where, when, who, how much, how often? Be precise as possible. How do you know that this is accurate? How do you know that this is accurate? Anybody know Dean Natesty? Know the name? Oh, love that man. I was associate pastor with him at Woodbury Lutheran, and I would come into his office just, people hate what we're doing. I just complain and grump. And his first question was always, how many people are saying that? Everybody, I would reply, right? This is at Woodbury Lutheran, a church of 3,000. All 3,000 people hate us. And he would say, no, really, how many people? Well, I heard it from 2. And he wouldn't even say anything, he'd just look at me. 2 people, right? What is make reality your friend? Make reality your friend. We often think worse of somebody or a situation than it actually is. And conversely, sometimes we often think better of a situation or a person than they actually are, right? Make reality your friend. How do you want this, or how do you know this is back to it? What have you done about this so far, and what's holding you back? Again, this gets really into, these first 3 are focused on gaining clarity and on the reality. Okay? Does this make sense so far? Okay. The O then stands for options. What options have you come up with? What are some of the things you've tried in this situation? What's happening? What options have you come up with? As a leader, this is where you put your opinion into what they are struggling with. So the question is, when should I give my opinion in a coaching situation, even if you know what to do in the situation? The O part of the conversation is when you do that. And when all the options are on the table and you want to add to the stack of options that they are considering. Here's an example. Tracy Stavang, who's a DCE, whom I love, she's a director of, she's the youth ministry at Trinity in Hudson. She's a coach, a speaker, trainer, awesome person. And she was developing her next talk, and I was trying to coach her to find, she couldn't come up with the title for this talk, and she had described the talk, and she had come up with, the talk is basically, she gets up and if you want a speaker, I'd recommend her. But she gets up in front of ladies and she has lipstick and she has hats, and it's called Hatitude. And she talks about the different hats that people wear and the attitudes that we have in different situations with different people. It's a great talk. So she'd come up with Hatitude, Be Epic, Live Fearless. And I never said, I like that one. I like that one. Even though I did, I liked a couple of them. After she exhausted all of her options, I said, can I throw one on the table as well? She's like, yeah, sure. So I said, how about you call it Hatitude, Live Fearless, Be Epic. So I basically just combined everything together, and I threw it out there. I thought it was great. I was like, you should do that one. She didn't. She hated that idea. But at the end of the session, she came up with Hatitude, how to live fearless in a fearful world. Way better than mine. Well, not really. I thought mine was brilliant. But way, way better. When the person is struggling to come up with options, you can ask permission to throw something on the table. as almost the last option. Okay. Again, questions under this one would be, what could I do? What could you do to change the situation? What approach or actions have you seen used or used yourself in similar situations? What do you have that you're not using now? What resources do you have that you're not using now? We all struggle for staff members, for volunteers, for calling pastors, and with the shortage in our denomination, well, actually worldwide, in a lot of pastors, what resource do you have with people-wise that can accomplish the, quote, pastoral ministry, and don't get all theological on me, the shepherding ministry that are right underneath your nose, right? God looks at Moses and says, Moses goes, how am I going to get across this water? And God says, what do you got in your hand? A stick, right? Well, take that. God can use a stick, right? God can use people, in your congregation in amazing ways. So ask, what is it that you have in your hand? What are you not using that you could be using? Then the last one is W. What will it take? So you've come up with an option. What is it going to take for you to actually get this done? This is where you as a coach become kind of a dripping faucet. Okay? Isn't it true that partnering with someone almost always ensures success or at least movement? So you ask then, what option or options did you choose? What are you going to do? Okay, to what extent does this meet all your objectives? This is a little stale, but you get the idea. I love this one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that you'll get this done? Normally, depending on if they're scared of you or not, they'll say, an 8. If it's not a 10, you have to ask, what's going to make it a 10? What is going to make it a 10? Who do you need in and around you? And then what can I do to help? Now, that isn't taking on their problem. There might be something that you could do to help. But you have to balance that out depending on who you are. Again, our role as leaders is to equip the saints. In business world, your role as a leader is to equip the company, equip the staff. As an aside, one question that you should ask yourself and ask your staff, who's your customer? I'm clicking a little bit into my business stuff. Who's your customer? For the pastor, who is your customer? We all say the people. The people are not your customer. Your staff is your customer. Your leader is your customer. In Kent Hunter's book, he has a great illustration, asks the question, what's the fruit of an apple tree? Yes. Oh, man, you're not supposed to say it right away. Our first initial response is an apple, right? Apple tree, apple falls, there's the fruit. No, the fruit of an apple tree is another apple tree. David, you had said something to me about apples. What was that thing that you told me about apple seeds?
Anybody can count the seeds in the apple, but only God knows how many apples there is.
Yes. Say it again.
Anybody can count the seeds in the apple, but only God can count the apples in the seed.
Anybody can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in the whatever. I can't. Yeah. But isn't that good? Yeah. That's the goal that we as leaders, whether you use coaching, mentoring, whatever, you always have to have this is my role is not to make all the decisions. My role is to partner with the people of God, specifically if you're in a staff situation as a leader, your leaders, so that they can make disciples, I don't know if you've heard this in a book somewhere. They make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. That's the goal of our ministry. One of the things I love doing is this. So I say to somebody, so what do you think is the most effective action to take? So like, let's say they lay everything out on the table. They have no idea what to do. Say, well, what do you think would be the most effective action to take? And if they respond, I really don't know. I respond, if you did know, what would be the action? 95% of the time, they answer, they know, Isn't that interesting? Again, brain science. I just don't know what to do next. Well, if you did know, what would it be? Well, I would fire that person. It's amazing how that question happens. If you did know, what would you do? Okay, so that's the I grow model. Again, I'm in a typical situation, conversation. You're just going to have, this is art. You're going to have to pray that God is guiding you in this. I'm going from the I to the R to the G. It's not a form, if you will. I mean, do this, do this, do this. It's helpful. But again, this is the model that I use. And then these 7 questions that I intersperse are kind of the pinpoints throughout the conversation. This comes from Michael Bungay-Stainer book, The Coaching Habit. And again, I'll have a link for you on this. This guy is so, dig the mutton chops on this dude, man. It's just so great. He's an English guy. He runs a company called Box of Crayons. Isn't that great? And it's a coaching leadership consulting group. But he did a lot of research on neuroscience. He loves brain sciences like I do. And so he came up with these seven questions that he uses specifically in the business world. And you can, obviously, in our leadership sense. So here are the 7 questions. Again, kind of briefly. The first one is this. What's on your mind? Remember, and this was kind of what we talked about before. Dean comes into my office and he's just chatting away or hey, I got to meet with you about it. He's just going crazy. And you just say, hey, that's awesome, Sarah. What's on your mind? And it cuts them right to it. Okay, so that's a key question. What's on your mind? The benefit is it's personal, and it helps your staff member just get right on track and get right into it. Second question that I use and he says is the bombshell question is, and what else? And what else? What's on your mind? Oh, this person's bugging me. Oh, and what else? Oh, I don't know. It's just he's really bugging me because. Oh, and what else? And you keep saying that until they just say, well, there isn't anything else. Okay, now we can move forward. It's just exhausting everything, trying to squeeze everything out. It's also, frankly, if I don't know where to go in the conversation, I say this. Like if somebody says something to me, and I like in one of the grow, like in the O or the R areas, and I have no idea how to transition or what to do, I go, and what else? And it spurs them, and then hopefully the Holy Spirit spurs something in me, and we just kind of work through that process. So if you don't remember any of these questions, remember, and what else? Some little kid comes into your office, I'm just so mad today. Really? Tell me about that. He hit me in the head. Well, and what else? And I like cookies rather than ice cream. Oh, and what else? I didn't like that guy in the big orange suit out there. And it just helps spur things out there. Love Jeff. He calls it the best question. It's the awe question, AWE, and what else? Kelly and I do a lot of walks together, and occasionally I find myself clicking into my coach mode because I'm curious about what she's talking about with me, and I start saying, and what else? And we're walking. She knows I'm a coach. She knows all this stuff, and she's just 15, 20 minutes, and what else? And she's going on and on and on. But eventually she catches me. She goes, stop coaching me. But I'm like, honey, it's helping, isn't it? Yeah. And then I'm walking home alone. So, okay, and what else? The third one is, what's the real challenge here for you? Man, I love this question. What's the real challenge here for you? You use this when a person lists a bunch of problems. And this kind of gets back to, if you did know, what would you do? If they're listing all these different things, again, throwing things on the table, like the attitude thing, you basically say, okay, what's the real challenge here for you? The Spirit, using brain science, brings it up. There's something that sifts when a person hears this, and the key is this. You could say, what's the real challenge? But that isn't personal. That wouldn't dive down. What's the real challenge here for you? Then there's a challenge then that you could work with. Oftentimes, this happens to me a lot when you're listening to the staff and you kind of know what the problem-solving route to take would be. What's the real challenge here for you? And you think this is going to be the challenge. It turns out it's something else for that person. Why would I offer solutions to a challenge that that person isn't concerned about in the moment? So what's the real challenge here for you? Fourth question that he has is, what do you want? When's the last time somebody asked you, what do you want? Like, when you're struggling with something in ministry, when you're tired, when you're depressed, when you're overwhelmed, when you have all these people coming to you, what do you want? Do you know what you want? You know, it's okay to ask that question. We as Lutherans kind of, it's whatever God wants. No, but God, what's good for you is good for the church. Okay? If you're needing a break, if you're needing more staff, if you're needing something, you need to tell your leaders, what's good for me is good for the church and good for ministry. Okay? This is a health question. But what is it? Well, what do you want? I was coaching a gal at one of my other congregations. Her name was Beth. And she was just struggling with relationships, and she wanted to be dating somebody, and she had bad divorce that happened, but she wanted to step back into the game, and I like this person but not this person. And I asked her this question, what do you want? And she phrased it negatively, and she said, I don't want to be alone the rest of my life. Okay, now there's a different attitude in my heart toward her as we continue that conversation. Fifth question, how can I help? Again, this is not, I'm going to do something, but is there something that you've decided to do that I can help resource you in to figure out the problem? A gal named Denise walked in my office. Actually, if you're a pastor, have you ever gone between services and somebody says, can I talk to you for a minute in between services? How long is that conversation going to go? Hours, right. And how long is till the next service? 15 minutes, right? So she's following me, and she's, can I talk to you for a minute? And I'm like, oh my goodness. So she kind of laid out some stuff, and she started dumping really on some really hard stuff, and I'm glad I took the time to do it. And I wanted to just throw out the answer. And so I said, well, how can I help? And she says, well, you don't need to fix it. I just needed to hear myself say it. And then, we prayed, and everything was good. Then number 6 is, as a person is deciding, if yes to this, what do you have to say no to? You personally, if you want to say yes to something, is there something that you have to say no to? Most of us in ministry or whatever realm of life, we love to load ourselves up, and we get so busy that we can't quit things. So if I'm going to solve this problem, what am I going to have to give up to make that solution happen? I had a business world again. I had a buddy. His company was refining metal. So like you take your old watches to the gold guys, and they would pay you for the gold in it. They would bring it to our company, or Scott's company, and he would pay the gold guys that you brought it to a certain amount. They would refine it, and then they would send it off and have another company make it back into jewelry. And as an aside, did you know gold is the only metal that doesn't decrease when it's refined? When silver is, and the reason I know this is because I worked for their company for a bit. I was the refiner guy. Got scars all over my arms from that. It was awesome. But silver loses a certain percentage. Platinum, all the other metals do. That's why I believe when John describes heaven is paved with streets of what? Because they never diminish and go away. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Or if they do, it's like 0.00001% in that refining process. Unless you get a guy like me that spills it on the floor. Not saying I did. Okay, and then finally, this one is more toward an official coaching thing that I love to do. And actually, even if you're not coaching or connecting with any of this, I challenge you, the next meeting that you have, whether it's your board meeting, whether it's your children's ministry staff meeting, whatever meeting it is, at the very end, before you pray, ask this question. What made this feel like a win? What made this feel like a win? You could have the worst board meeting in the room, And when you ask this question, the Holy Spirit changes the outlook of that whole meeting. Because now people are forced to go, you know what, we yelled at each other and it was really I disagreed with everything, but we're doing this together. We're in it together. I loved this about that. And then people walk away from that meeting or from your meeting or from that event and just saying, you know what? Yeah, there were some hiccups, but overall, God, that was just great. Right? What made it a win from your and useful for in the conversation? Okay? So here's how I use this systematically in my ministry. We have staff meeting every week. The first week is all staff, so all the children's ministry, all program ministry, and all we have a big school, so all the key school leaders. So the director, the assistant directors, we're all meeting, and it's more devotional, pouring into each other. Little bit of agenda, but not a whole lot. So that's the first of every month. The second and third weeks are ministry staff, depending on what's going on. So sometimes I'll take just the children's ministry staff and we'll meet on one of the weeks. Other times it's youth ministry. Other times it's worship ministry. Those 2 weeks are that. Fourth week is my one-on-one coaching with all my directors, the direct reports to me. And we walk through this whole process with this in mind. They have to fill out a meeting prep sheet. So this is once a month, not once a week, with my directors. This is a meeting prep sheet. Preparing for the coaching session allows optimization, blah, 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 blah. So then they have to answer, and this, you'll get all this. How am I today? How has my week been? What do I want to get out of the call today? So this is, again, I use on, not only face-to-face meetings, but Zoom calls or whatever. What do I want to get out of it today? What action did I take since our last time? What are my wins? What are my challenges? What do I have to report? What do I have to be held accountable for? What issues do I want to deepen our call today? What are the challenges, concerns, achievements, areas, and all that? And then, what else? You saw that, right? So that's what I use when I'm doing personal coaching or coaching clients or in the business world. For staff, they have to do this one. It's a Google Doc, which I absolutely love because you can just categorize everything on a Google spreadsheet. And it's simply this: name, what did you accomplish since our last meeting a month ago? What I didn't get done, but I'm still working on. The challenges or obstacles I'm facing now are the win or outcome I'd like from our conversation is. And that really focuses my coaching time with my staff, gives them direction. And it's once a month, so it's not every week I got to fill this form out and blah, 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 and all of that and get complaints on it. Okay? So that's how I use that form. Yeah. At Trinity and Hudson, my direct reports were 7. Yeah, 7. Yeah, now I'm thinking. See, I'm going up to the left. Now I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah. At least I didn't go. Yeah, right. Yeah, and it is for me, and this is just the way I operate. So for me, it's off campus. It's if you're meeting with staff for this kind of thing, don't meet at the church. Just go to coffee. The church would be glad to pay for it. If you don't have a ministry account set up, get that set up. Just take them out to coffee. It's a different vibe, right? Or beer, that helps too. Yeah.
So does this, serve as the framework for the time that you spend with your staff?
Absolutely. It's not the only framework. Obviously, we bounce off of this, but this is the starting point. It's super helpful. It focuses on what they want to talk about. Yeah.
Do you have a time limit? I'm thinking of the deans,
Yeah.
Because I know that can be hard sometimes, but there are people that, all right, I have this amount of time, and then, so are those, I hate to say time, but what is an average? How long do you spend?
Yeah, I typically 50 minutes to an hour. That's my gauge. And with my deans, I've had people like that on my staff. They know that it's an hour, but they're just oftentimes people that aren't aware of that. They don't. It doesn't feel like they're talking forever. For us, it's like, good Lord, shut up, kind of thing. It feels like that. Sorry, I'm really compassionate, aren't I? But what I do then is at the 10-minute mark, I say, hey, Dean, we got about 10 more minutes. And then I jump down here. Is there any, you said on our sheet, there's a couple other things. We got about 10 more minutes.
We always try to end with the bottom one, right?
This is actually, I have this form ahead of time. So I actually start with this in the conversation. I say, so our time is, about an hour. They know it. This is a little stale. But I say, so it looks like your outcome is this. Has that changed? I would ask. And normally it doesn't. Sometimes it does. But then I would ask that. And then we would just start talking through the I grow and the Stainer questions as that conversation happens. Yeah.
Do you find that you have to end with the win too, so they go out?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. When you're with your staff in your meeting, even if it's a horrible meeting with your staff or you feel like they feel it is, I always say, what made this feel like a win for you? For you. You got to say for you. What made this feel like a win? Well, nothing. What made this feel like a win for you? Well, I got off campus for coffee. Great. That's a win, right? So, and then they go, you leave them with the sense of positivity about the ministry that you're sharing as staff people. Yeah.
So, sort of functionally, if they last about an hour and you have 7 on staff, you're pretty busy at the coffee shop for the whole day.
Yep. And I let the board knows that day, and it's only once a month. If the board or your whatever the oversight body isn't allowing you one day to meet one-on-one with your staff, that's a conversation you have to have with your board. Because your most important role is what? Who's your customer? It's your leaders, because they're the ones doing the ministry. Let me play off of that, because this is as Tracy has her touch points about staff. So here's mine. Gosh. I got all kinds of checks in my spirit. So we 2 years ago, I kind of transitioned from 25 years of being in the parish to doing coaching and consulting and what I'm talking about now, and I serve congregations. So I'm in a vacancy right now, and I'm doing vacancy work, open to a call at this point kind of thing. The last 2 years, I have met more people who don't know Jesus than 25 years of church work as a pastor. Now, I'm not saying that's anybody's fault but mine, but we in church work, it's so easy to be in the church bubble. I'm so grateful for the last 2 years of being out of this thing called church work, if you will, in ministry out and about, because I'm away from that building, that thing called that we call the church, which is a horrible translation of the original words. Okay? So again, meeting with your staff is you're pumping them to go to, you're the athletic director, they're the coaches, their people are the players. It's an athletic model. God's the owner of your team, you're the athletic director, you pour into your coach. I wouldn't see an athletic director down on the as being the Vikings kicker, although they sure could have used it. But that's the mentality we have to, and that's what our seminaries need to be training us to do, is to be equippers. And they do to some extent, but we're equippers. So good. I'm sorry for bouncing off that, but that was a good question. Yeah.
So it seems like all of this has a really broad application of coaching. I'm kind of listening through this lens of I have baby boomers, I have Gen Xers, I have millennials, I have Gen Zs. So I'm just curious if you, I'm just curious if you have to kind of adapt how you're coaching, or maybe are they responding in different ways, or different generations responding in different ways to coaching?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good. That's an awesome question. So the question is, generationally, from boomers, busters, Xers, whatever we call them now, how do they respond to questions is really what it comes down to. And yeah, what I said at the beginning was these models coaching is all art. And what you have to do is be listening to what they are taught, how they are responding. And for some of the younger generations, like my kids' age generations and younger, well, I kind of think, and I'm not bashing it, but that's just the language that They can't come up with what they're actually feeling and thinking verbally. And has anybody noticed the switch in language between I think and I feel?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So in our generation, my old generation, I'm 57, our, circle and older, so if I'm making an observation about something, I think that this wasn't really a good policy the government did. Generations now are I listen for this, I feel. And the reason for that is I feel is a personal thing. So if you go against my feelings, you're a bad person. How could you be so mean to my feelings? That's what our society and culture, this is just me, I believe that's been the change that I've seen, because I just don't want to be hurt. Specifically to your question, I do. I look through and I understand who the person is that I'm working with, and I do use those questions, but I'm very well aware that the answers won't be as direct as somebody who is more of an adult, if you will, older. But if I'm working with student leaders, which I don't do a lot of, it is more listening to how they are responding and then using Isaac's second question thing. Don't let them just keep going. Just say, hey, hold on. And I even do timeout. I use that a lot. Hey, timeout. You said this. What else about that? Dive a little bit more into that. So, yeah, good question. Wow, we're cruising on time. Okay, one last form, and you get all these in the thing. This is my actual coaching sheet, and yes, I'm old school. I print off a sheet when I'm doing coaching on the phone, business-wise, and you can just see, I pray, whether the person's a Christian or not, I always pray, out loud or quiet. I begin, what's on your mind, what else? See, these are the key ones. At the end of a conversation, you can just see it. What would it look like if you woke up, everything was good? And what else? What's the reality? What's the real challenge here for you? I'm going like that. And then the backside has the other questions on it as well. So this is actual real-time stuff that I still use even today when I'm doing coaching. I use these with Joe. Yeah. So, wow. Okay, I'm going to just keep going. So here's the secret page, mybpmcoaching.com. Now, this is a routing URL, which means this will route to pivotpreneur.com, which is kind of my homestay website. This has all the session slides, those staff forms I just showed you. You get a free ebook. Did anybody get my free ebook that I've ahead of time? You did? Okay, cool. As people were signing up, I kind of sent the link to that. So I have a free ebook that's on there, 5 Keys to a Balanced Life. I have a Facebook page, The Coaching Habit. That's that Stainer book. Some of these are affiliate links, just to let you know. So I get a little money from Amazon. So if you feel bad about that, just look it up yourself. I don't care. Transformational coaching, that's that Ogden and Roll book that I mentioned that I first stumbled upon. I have a podcast, Pivotpreneur podcast, that all talks about all of this stuff. And then an online course, 5 Steps to the Work You Love. If there's anything that comes up as you are thinking about this session or that you want more help on, just email me directly through that website, pivotpreneur@gmail.com or toddstocker.com, whatever you want to. You'll find me. I'm just Google my name all over the place. So that's the secret page itself. And if you signed up on that sheet that was going around, I'll send this directly to you. And as typically what happens is after this session, I go, this would be another really good resource. And I'll just send you the links to the resources that I'm using or that I would have, okay? Okay, before we get rolling, one last thing. What was the most helpful here for you? What made our time feel like a win for you?
The Stainer question.
Stainer? Yeah. Stainer questions? Okay, yeah.
Honestly, structuring, when to have those kinds of meetings with the staff, and you sort of gave me permission to spend a lot of time, which I haven't felt, I've been able to do. So
Good.
I appreciate that.
Yep. Good.
Well, and the different ways to ask the questions.
Yeah. Yeah. What else made it feel like a win? Yeah.
Thank you for making me laugh.
Thank you for making me laugh. That's my best one ever. Thank you. Yeah. 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 Awesome. Okay. Again, if you walk away and you think of something, I am so available and accessible. I'd love to touch base with you in chat. So let me do a quick prayer, and then I apologize we didn't get time to kind of process a live thing. Maybe next time, next year or whenever we could do that. So let me pray real quick. Father, I thank you for this amazing, crazy, messy thing that you have given all of us to be a part of called church work, ministry. And whatever level that is or whatever position we have here in the room, God, help us to know that this is a flatline thing where we're all in it together. We all have gifts and thoughts and experiences that we bring to the table. God, I pray that what we've gone over the last little bit here, this idea of having a coach mindset, will give us the stress release of meeting with our staff or folks, leaders, and that you then can work the solutions and the great things that you would have in store for them in the ministry in which they have been called, Father. Thank you for this conference. Thank you for everyone that is here. Give us just the continued sense of your grace and your peace. In Jesus' name, amen. Rock and roll, everybody. Thank you.